Let's talk about your introduction of Kyle Rayner. Did DC bring you in on Green Lantern to create him to replace Hal Jordan?
Yeah, when DC offered me Green Lantern, it was I had actually been down at Marvel's offices for the day. I think it was a Thursday night, and I got back to my house down the road from Bernie Wrightson, and I got a call from DC in the evening saying, "Oh, we want to talk to you about something." And the something turned out to be, "Do you want to take over Green Lantern?" And I was like, "That sounds cool. I like that. I like that Hal Jordan costume that Gil Kane created, and I like the whole right stuff fighter pilot kind of vibe." And they're like, "Oh yeah, well, hang on, we're doing something different." And then they explained to me what they wanted to do with Emerald Twilight was basically move Hal out of the lead role of the series and then create a new one. So it was obviously it was like, oh, that's a big thing. That's not just tell the next story. That's a complete change in how the franchise is going to work. And obviously I said yes. And then so Emerald Twilight is basically the story that they asked me to tell with they gave me like a page and a half of notes, like here are the broad strokes of the story, you fill in the rest. And then I got to create Kyle from whole cloth without really much direction from DC. They just let me and Darryl come up with the name, the look, the background on him, and just kind of went, yep, that looks good. And we were off and running. Now again, I was still fairly young, and I didn't realize what an opportunity this was, and frankly, how much pressure there was to get this right. And we didn't have a lot of time. I mean, we were up against the deadline because they had already started to work on a different version of issues 48, 49, and 50 that obviously never saw print with the previous team. So we had to hit the ground running, and we didn't look back. We just, we were fortunate enough to, have DC trust us enough to just go do this thing. And I'm sure if we had come up with something that they weren't comfortable with, we would have heard about it. But Kyle just was, he's kind of what you see is what we came up with.
Ron, you brought a new meaning to cold cuts, man. When the way Kyle's girlfriend was killed, Alex in Emerald Twilight. And I just want to know, was that your idea? Was that Darryl's idea? And what was was there any backlash?
No, that was my idea. You can blame me, not Darryl. He was just a good soldier. Oh yeah, there was a lot more backlash about what happened to Hal initially than there was about what happened to Alex, which is probably indicative of where we were as a society then and where we are as a society now. But there was some furor because people didn't see it coming. Like the people did not expect someone that we had sort of hopefully built into a likable supporting character was going to get killed before the first year of the run was out. That was always the intention. I mean, I always knew that was going to happen because I wanted the stakes to be serious. I wanted I wasn't like getting a Green Lantern ring isn't winning the lottery. There's a huge amount of responsibility that goes with it, and if you don't do the job correctly, people around you pay the price. So that was always the intention, but we made sure that we had built Alex's character so that essentially you should have liked her more than you liked Kyle at that point. Like she was responsible. She was smarter than he was. And she's the one that ends up paying the price for it. So I knew that was going to be her fate, but I think when that issue came out, there was kind of a gasp, a collective gasp. But we got a lot more death threats over Hal Jordan being removed from the book than we did for killing Kyle's girlfriend.
Ron, you also introduced Parallax, which was originally Hal's dark path to villainy. Today, Parallax is the sentient embodiment of fear. Can you tell us your impressions of Jeff Johns' Green Lantern and how he evolved your classic storylines?
Jeff and I are friends, and that's just how comics works. It's the team that comes after you, whether it's directly after or years down the road, builds on what you did, and ultimately you don't. It's not yours. I understand that neither Kyle nor Parallax, are not my toys. They're DC's toys. I had a large hand in creating both of them, but they're ultimately not mine. And you have to be okay with that, or you really can't work in a shared universe. I told the Parallax stories that I wanted to tell, and Jeff came in and did something different that turned out to be really popular too. So I don't have any problems with it because I'm an adult and I understand that's what the job is. I wish he wasn't a cloud in the movie, but I think that's probably a fairly universal opinion on that one.
Definitely.
So, Ron, fridging aside, how big of an impact was Emerald Twilight on your career?
Well, big, I guess. I mean, I'm still here, so that says something. No, it was a big deal, and I didn't realize how big a deal it was going to be until it was all sort of happening. But it was also, it was pre-internet, so it was pre-internet and pre sort of culture in general discovering comics. It was pre, MCU, and it was comics were still just comics at that point for the most part. Now comics are a part of the cultural fabric like they were not then. So yeah, it was a big deal for the time. I think it would be an even bigger deal now because we're so plugged into social media and comics get treated like all other forms of storytelling. So it was a big deal within the comic world, but outside of the comic world, nobody gave a shit because nobody was aware. Yeah, I mean, certainly it made a big impression in my career because everybody was reading the book, and it sold a bunch of copies, and it was the thing that everybody was talking about for that period of time. And I think we managed to bring a bunch of new readers to DC. Not that the plan was to have those issues be kind of a ground floor read for people who weren't reading DC books at all, but it kind of turned into that because it was a brand new character. It was a storyline that a lot of people were talking about, and it was also my first DC monthly, so I was anxious to play with all the toys. I wanted to write Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman and explore different ends of the DC universe because it was my first time exploring all that stuff. So it just all sort of dovetailed into a year or two that was really welcoming to brand new readers.
6 legs.